The cloud computing industry is set to hit $912.77 billion in 2025. That's huge. And with more data moving from in-house systems to the cloud, it means one thing for sure: your attack surface is getting a lot bigger. Number 5. Crosssite scripting. Crosssite scripting, it's been around for a couple of decades, but it's still hurting us. How does that work? Well, here's the short version. If you have a website and a malicious actor manages to insert a link, let's say in the comments section, that link may contain additional code, such as JavaScript. This is the type of insertion occurring here, as the individual is embedding that code into the website. Another guy comes along and reads that, and clicks on the link. Once he clicks on the link, now this content is running on him. It wasn't content supplied by the website, it was content supplied by the bad guy. And what can that do? Well, a number of bad things. For instance, one of the things it can do is hijack his session by allowing the bad guy to take his session tokens, and then control the session from that point forward. Another thing that can happen is he can be redirected off to some other sketchy website and not realize that, in fact, he's left the original one. It could do a lot of other things, like making this site even look different to him than what it should be. It could implant malware on his system. A lot of different things could happen. Really bad stuff, and we're seeing this continue today. Number 4. Stolen credentials. Alright, fourth one is stolen or compromised credentials. Basically, think passwords on the dark web, which is sort of considered a marketplace where a lot of bad guys are hanging out, and they are buying and selling credentials and all sorts of things like that. It was observed that the cost of credentials, average cost of these, went down 13% in the last 2 years. Well, that means if it's cheaper to buy passwords, then it's going to be easier for the bad guys to buy more of them. It's going to be easier for them to log in than it is to hack in. And that is, in fact, what is happening. They don't need to break down the front door. All they need is a stolen password. And with tactics like phishing, credential stuffing, and brute force attacks, it's like they're fishing with a net instead of a hook. If even one person takes the bait or reuses a password across platforms, they're in. And then, a single hijacked account can be used to move laterally across your entire cloud environment. And so, you see, they quietly exfiltrate data over weeks without triggering alarms. Maybe you can't go make the cost of these credentials more expensive, but what you could do is use multi-factor authentication. That means a password alone will not get you into a system. So therefore, having a password is not really as valuable as it would be otherwise, so that's going to cause the value of passwords to go down, maybe. Number 3. Misconfiguration and weak access controls. One of the most frustrating and unfortunately most common vulnerabilities in cloud environments is simple misconfiguration. It doesn't matter how advanced your security tools are. If your cloud setup isn't configured properly, you're practically inviting attackers in through the front door. These missteps can happen during the initial setup, when you're first launching your cloud resources. But here's the tricky part. They can also creep in later, when you're updating your systems or scaling up. It's easy to overlook small changes that unintentionally expose sensitive parts of your infrastructure. That's why it's absolutely critical to lock down anything that's public-facing. If something doesn't need to be accessible to the public internet, make sure it isn't. And even more importantly, access to sensitive data should be strictly limited. Only the people who genuinely need it should be able to get to it. To stay ahead of misconfigurations, regular audits of your cloud settings are a must. Think of it like checking your locks and alarms. Just because you set them once doesn't mean they're still secure months later. Number 2. Data breaches. Let's talk about the second scariest risk in the cloud space, data breaches. And the truth is, they often happen for reasons that are totally avoidable, like weak access controls, misconfigured settings, or exposed APIs that were never properly secured. It only takes one small crack in the system for attackers to slip through, just one. Now here's where it gets real. The average cost of a data breach hit a whopping $4.45 million in 2023. That's not just a dent in the budget, that's full-blown damage to your bottom line and your reputation. And when we say reputation, we mean it. Think about what happened with Yahoo back in 2013. A massive data breach ended up shaving $350 million off their acquisition price. That wasn't just about leaked emails. It changed the value of the entire company. You have to understand how to read cloud bills. You have to understand the billing within the cloud, how it works, what are the trade-offs, what are the services maybe you can shut down, what are the services you have to turn off, what are the things within cloud bills that you need to read. These are the areas. No tooling is going to help you 100% here. You have to understand. You have to upskill yourself here. So this is why, do not overfocus too much on tooling and ignore these areas. Otherwise, you'll always have challenges within cloud security. Before moving on, there is also AI phishing. In other words, using generative AI in order to generate phishing emails. There was an email security company that said they are now seeing these perfectly crafted and legitimate sounding phishing emails that look better than anything they've seen before. And that whole business of looking for grammar errors and spelling errors in phishing emails, that's slowly going away because generative AI doesn't make that mistake. So we're already seeing that AI is improving phishing attacks. Now, we need to do something about the defense as well. Number 1, deepfakes. Okay, this is the riskiest of all. It's called deepfakes. What's happening in that case? There was an attack where a deepfake was able to emulate and impersonate the CFO, the chief financial officer of a company, and convince an employee to wire $25 million out of that company into the attacker's account, all using a deepfake in a video call. So the employee thought for sure they were talking to the CFO, and therefore following those instructions. In fact, it was a deepfake. It was an AI-generated impersonation of the actual person, and they lost $25 million in that particular case. We also saw another example in the US, the presidential election run-up in the early part of 2024. There was a deepfake robocall of Joe Biden's voice, calling people and telling them they didn't need to vote in the primary. They could just save their vote for the general election. And even though they say history repeats itself, actually Mark Twain said it doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes, we're going to see some of the same trends. And so there you have it, the top 5 cloud security risks you can't afford to ignore. So whether you're a startup just beginning your cloud journey or a global enterprise scaling fast, one thing is clear. Security is always foundational, guys. Start by implementing multi-factor authentication (MFA) across the board. Not just for admins, everyone is one of the simplest yet most powerful tools you can use to shut the door on attackers. Next, enforce strong password policies. That means unique, complex passwords and regular changes. Password managers help with that. And finally, monitor. Set up alerts for unusual login activity, failed login attempts, logins from new devices or geolocations. If something seems off, assume it is until proven otherwise. Thanks for sticking around. Stay smart, stay safe, and keep your head in the cloud, but your security on the ground.